Monday, y'all. Work time. Get to it. Joshua's not feeling well, so he's not here today. We do got the Ningy and Chevelle. So we're gonna put the bumper on the back of the Chevelle today. It doesn't have the accommodations for the holes, so we gotta figure that out. But the main focus is, as normal, getting the GMC done. We had a couple of cracked parts that I had been waiting on. We're waiting for this piece to come in, just the shroud. The louvers are fine, but this piece has obviously got some fractured bits. Our main concentration today, I'm gonna pop the drive lines right now, front and back, and I'm going to get the motor mounts and as much of the wiring done as I can. Now, this will be like the part 2 or 3 of the main swap. So what we're gonna do today is go around and disconnect anything to the motor. So exhaust manifolds, whatever little bit of wiring is still left. Most of it is unattached already, but we just gotta pop it off the hold downs, which are these little pin pieces on top of the struts. We got a couple more to do on this side. Same thing, just go around. We're gonna take our time, make sure anything that's connected to the motor stays with the motor. So ground straps, like I said, exhaust manifolds, 3 bolts. The motor mounts are pretty simple. It's just 3 bolts, 15 millimeter, 3 15 millimeter nuts for the exhaust, and then we will pull the 4-wheel drive front drive line off up there, and we will pull the back drive line off back here. And I'm trying just kind of pick the whole motor training transfer case up and set it right here in front of the cab, because we have all this space we're not gonna be using for a couple days. And then I would like to get the Chevelle buttoned up this afternoon and shoved back outside. And then I'm gonna put the 2 frames right here next to each other so that we can get to cracking. But like I said, my goal is to get the motor tranny, transfer case, drive lines, all that out. Then I'm just gonna work my way down the frame and start undoing things. I don't like losing track of stuff, so I'll go around and undo every bolt today that is on the frame for hold downs on brackets, but I'll put the bolts right back in so we don't lose place. And I am gonna take about 1,000,000 pictures while I go through this, just like this, so we know exactly where everything comes from, so we don't mess anything up when it goes back together. This truck should be better than new when it goes back together. We don't want anything in the wrong orientation or spot. So a lot of methodical, time-consuming, tedious little marking spots with a marker and stuff like that. So by the afternoon, I'd like to have the motor out, tranny out, and I'd like to come over here and flip. The frame is completely done and cured. I'd like to flip that right side up and then install the Rough Country lift kit on the front end. So the drop brackets and the drop brackets for here, we got to do some trimming on some plates, and we got to cut out these tabs, which I'll cover and I'll show everybody what we got to do. We got to trim this cross member, and we'll get all the drop down brackets and stuff in that are sitting over here on the floor. That way, tomorrow, we should be able to put the 2 frames next to each other and then just start swapping. I'd like to swap the front suspension over first and get the whole lift kit buttoned up on the front. And then I'd like to do the wiring harness, hopefully, and then, or loom. And then I would like to do probably the fuel system. And I'd like to get all that stuff buttoned up. And then I'm gonna hopefully have some help one night this week with a bunch of people walking the brake lines back out of this frame, because I think you can do the whole thing without bleeding them. I think if I have, 2 people on each front caliper, someone holding the ABS module, and then me just rolling the whole entire rear end leaf springs and all back, I can roll it right out and roll it right into the other frame. So that's gonna be my goal. By the end of the week, I'd like to have the frame mostly back together, the new frame, with the lift kit on it. So hopefully if I have some time this weekend, I might be able to roll the frame back under the cab and be ready. We'll see. It's lofty goals, but I mean, I'm just gonna keep plugging on it, so it don't matter. It's either gonna happen or won't. But I will kind of get some film of in-action shots today of me pulling this out. I'll just put this thing on a tripod and see how it does. So I will hopefully see you guys in a few minutes. What's going on, y'all? Installing the lift kit, the front end part of the Rough Country 5-inch bracket lift today. So there's some things that they don't cover in any of the videos that I've been watching. Some of the stuff they do, some of it they don't, but no one gives a good detailed job of it. So when you put in a bracket lift, you're just dropping the control arms down. So one of the things you got to do is upside down. Obviously the frame is upside down, and since I have the frame off, I can show you guys a lot better, but these are the pockets the upper control arms sit in. There's the holes for the control arms and the guide pins for the cams. Now, I'll walk around and show you on the other side what I did. You have to cut out the original brackets right here. They're sitting right there on the floor. And it's super easy. You can do this really clean because they don't really weld these that great to begin with. And then the other thing you have to do is you have to trim out the pockets to set this lowering bracket down. So what I did was I just took and cut a nice clean square. They're rounded from the factory. I cut it back about 1/4 of an inch or so. Let me put this down, I'll show you. I cut back like 1/4 of an inch right here. So it was a rounded edge. I just cut it back nice and flush, cut it across there, nice and square. Just use a cutoff wheel grinder, 4-inch disc. The same thing on this side, just nice and faded in, and I took a flap disc and just kind of filed down this edge so that the bracket can sit down in. And how it works is you have your drop bracket for your diff, and now that just sets into those pockets like that. So that's the first step of it. And then I'll come show you the brackets on the other side. These are the bump stops for the upper control arms. They're obviously going to move down now about 4 inches. So what you have to do is you have to cut this plate out of the way so the brackets can sit flush in there, and you got to get rid of this. Same thing over here, you got to cut this out of the way. So what I did on the other side was I just followed this inside edge with the cutting wheel. I just start here and work my way back gently, and then cut across the top, and then blend all this in with a flap disc. Same thing here, it's just a pad on top, so just cut across. There's actually a gap, so this one's a little easier because you can just cut right along and pop the whole piece off. And then on this stop, what I do is just gently come in here and start grinding at this weld on both sides real lightly until I think it's about free, and then just take a chisel and a hammer and go right in between here, and it pops the whole thing right out. It was super easy, nothing crazy. There is, for your original skid plate, there is a plate right here that you got to cut off, and you can see the weld marks from it. And you literally, same thing, just cut along the weld and then chisel, pop that off. And then next step is we got to cut these brackets for the original cross member, because now the diff is going to come down into this area, so you got to get rid of some of this. And there's another bracket over there on the floor, that one, that goes into this channel. So you're basically going to measure 3/4 of an inch away from this hole, scribe a straight line, and cut this piece off. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these off. Well, I guess you can see that 3/4 of an inch from this hole, scribe a line, and cut these out of here. So I will show you how to do that. I'll set this up on a tripod and do it real quick. I'll cut these out of the way. Hopefully I can get that on there. Hopefully this thing lasts long enough to film that. And then the last thing you do is you drill a hole, a 3-inch hole over there on that side with a template that lets you access the bolt, because you're going to lower those 4 bolts right there, there, and there were for the original rack and pinion, and you're going to move that down. So we're going to have to drill a hole to put a bolt in through that. And then that pretty much sums up the major stuff you have to do to get the front brackets on here for the suspension. I will show you how to install those. It's pretty straightforward. It's literally brackets that just bolt into the old control arm spots and drop everything down. And then you install your factory arms back into the relocated brackets. So I'm hoping to get all that done today before I go pick the small one up from preschool, because I'd like to get the front suspension as far as the lift kit stuff done, all the hard parts, so I can roll the frame over. And then I'm going to put the 2 frames together today and pull the motor and start taking everything off of this frame. I already finished up getting the drive lines loose. They're completely unbolted and free, front and back. The exhaust is completely free. The motor mounts are out. The wiring harness is completely off and ready to sit on the motor. So all I have to do now is pick up the motor training transfer case, set it on the ground over here, and then I'm going to put the 2 frames right next to each other, or one maybe long ways, I haven't decided, and then just start switch swapping, swooping, swapping, shing banging, whatever, little wiggle woggling parts back and forth. It shouldn't take a horrible amount of time, but I am going to take my time because I'm in no rush, and I want this thing to be perfect. So it might take me a couple days, but I'm gonna sit here and just one for one swap the pieces. And today should be the day where I get the two frames next to each other and ready to do that. So we'll see how that works out. It should be, with all luck, as long as I can go get Ani from preschool and get back here, install the rest of the brackets on the front end, flip the frame over and get it on wheel dollies and put it back over here. I should be able to achieve that today pretty easily by the end of today. I might have to call in a hand because my back's hurting, and all I have is the cherry picker, so I'm probably going to hang the frame from the motor puller and try and roll it over myself. But if my back's hurting this bad, I might call somebody to stabilize it or something, or hold it with me. So we're getting there, but I will check back in with you guys in a little bit, wrap up the front end install. All right, y'all. So getting ready to cut the back brackets off for the lift. We already covered the drop down brackets, as we said earlier. These are already cut out and done. So our drop brackets can go into the pockets right here. And over here, we'll get these pockets all cleaned up and flap disked and painted, but we cut the brackets out of the way that are from the factory so the drop brackets go down. Remember, this frame is upside down. It's easier to see it this way as I'm working on it right now, and you guys can get a lot better view of what's going on with the actual frame. So we got the top lowering bracket in. Now we're going to the back one. A lot of people panic when you get to cutting things, okay? And I understand. It's crazy. To cut things off your frame seems a lot, you know? They tell you measurements and you can follow the directions. I'm a huge advocate for directions. Read the directions, follow the directions. But the other thing is, if you have common sense, you can look at things that they want cut out of the way and see why. And what I like to do is mock parts up and figure out why they want it cut. And aside from just measuring it, let's just take our time and look at it. So in this case, they want you to cut these lower brackets out of the way, and they tell you to measure 3/4 of an inch away from this hole. Well, the reason why is because you are going to now move the differential from the center of this bracket down. Okay, remember the frame's upside down, so the bracket's going to come down towards the ground. These are going to be in the way now, so you got to cut them out of the way. But the best way to actually do it isn't just to measure. Throw your bracket in. See why they want you to cut it out of the way and where it's going to be. If the bracket's going to come over this far, you got a grade 8 bolt holding it in. You need enough meat here to hold everything. So there's their 3/4 line. Cool, it lines up. But if you look at it, it's going to line up with this bracket. So if you really want to guide and you're using a cutoff wheel or sawzall, throw the bracket up there, stick the bolts in, and then cut. Leave yourself some meat and cut just on the other side of the bracket. And come down so it's nice and clean and flush it off. So we're going to do that on both sides. We're going to do our first couple of passes for our cuts, we're gonna do some pre-cuts on the top right here, and we're gonna follow both sides of the brackets. That way we know we are exactly at the same spot on both sides of this bracket, this side and the back side. That way when we cut together, we know we're in a straight line. You can also measure a bunch of times and make sure you make a mark on both sides and hit that same mark where you're cutting. But it's really not that complicated if you have a guide here and you're looking at where you know you shouldn't be going. If you're coming over into this area, you shouldn't be. Leave yourself some meat, come down, cut the whole thing, take a flapper, clean it up, fade it back in. That's what we're gonna do now. We're gonna start that next. That'll be basically the last part of the front bracket drop down setup install. Once we get that done, then I can roll the frame over. So stay tuned. I'm gonna cut these off real quick. It just doesn't seem to be working out with the tripod to show you guys how we're doing that, but I mean, you get the gist of it. I'll show you, you see them pre, and I'll show you them post cuts, and we'll get through the front end here, and it'll look a lot different when the frame is the right side, and I can show you guys the whole final install, the brackets. Then we can roll the frame over and start putting suspension on it. It'll start looking a lot more familiar to you guys. All right, I'll check back in. What's going down, y'all? It's been a long time since I updated anybody anything. I had to take a break from everything for a while. We had a lot of stuff going on, family, friends, all sorts of things going on. So back at it this week, no sick kids. So we're jumping right back into the GMC. I did do some things off camera in this last couple days that no one's seen. One of the major things is we pulled the motor, tranny, transfer case out. It's really simple. There's nothing really to hide or not show you guys about it. The old man came up. We put chains to the motor mounts so we weren't pressing against anything important, and we put a chain around the bell housing and came up from the back and caught the whole thing, and we just picked it up. It took two of us. We just kind of manipulated it the whole time it came up and then swung. I kept the driveline in because I didn't want to spill juice everywhere and try and fill this tranny, so we just walked the driveline out and swung it out the side. Turned the frame, put the frame back into the middle of the shop here, and we got the other frame still sitting up in front, painted and done. So the big goals for today, we got to transfer everything that we can from this frame to that frame. So what I'm going to start with is all of the wiring. So we're going to take all the wiring looms all the way down the body. It's all on one side. It looks really crazy when you look at the frame at first, but it's very basic. I mean, you just go back here. There's a computer on our truck at the back. We unbolted everything, literally unbolted wherever you can, and then I just stick the bolts back in so I know where they go. I'll walk the whole harness up front, lay it alongside the other frame, start putting it back in, come back and grab each bolt right where it lines back up. These are pretty simple because they all are going to line back up where they go. It's kind of a nightmare because everything is held in by those push-in plastic pins, which is kind of, I hate them, but I do have a tool. I've been using door panel interior piece tools like this guy right here, and it's been working out really good. You know, you get to a spot where you find, let's see, like this one right here, you got a clip holding the thing in, and I've literally just been getting this tool underneath them and just kind of wiggling around until it pops up and free. It's usually easier with two hands, but you just kind of snake it out of there and it seems to not break them up too bad. So I've been getting those out. These, just a simple regular screwdriver. It pops this clip, you just pop it out to the side and they pop out, and then you just open all these up. I already flipped all the wires, are all loose and back over, so we know exactly where those are going to go. These are just covers. I'm going to take this whole bracket off for this one, that way I know exactly where it lines back up. So we already loosened the whole thing. Walk it up. I will put the whole thing back in. I'll lay that back on the frame and keep all the ones flipped over the frame rail that don't go over the top of the brake lines and stuff, because the next thing we're gonna do is come back and grab all of the brake lines. I'm gonna have some buddies over tonight. We're gonna try and do the whole entire brake line, calipers, master, all one shot, and roll the whole diff out the back of the frame. And I'm gonna try and have somebody film that so we can see the in and out of how that works. But essentially moving along pretty quick now. This is going to take probably all day and some of tonight, and we'll get everything swapped to the new frame and have it ready to drop the motor tranny transfer case back in, hopefully by tonight. always huge goals like normal with me, but we're going to try. So, all you can do is try. So that's where I'm at. I'll keep you guys updated today. It's Tuesday. I'm going to let you guys know how we're doing throughout the day, and hopefully I'll have some buddies come over tonight, swap all that stuff around. We can film some of that. Hopefully I can have a friend come over and help film us taking out the rear end and the lines and all that so people can see that you can do it without bleeding the brakes. I'm hoping that works out. Yeah, other than that, it's just going to be me tinkering all day. So I'll check back in with you guys in a little bit. Wire harness.
Okay. Coming up. A little more up there we go. Yeah, back in front of the door. I was going back. Is it hooked on the underside of my carry?
Yeah, but you're going to have to go down with it.
Yeah, but it won't go down if it's hooked.
Well, it'll clear as soon as it comes away. The leaf spring thing is just touching the bottom. That's why you couldn't go up and down.
What is
This
this?
is an entire fully fledged brake system. I can't.
It goes up to the shoulder.
The things you do so you don't have to bleed a brake system.
This is how you avoid that.
What would the Russians do, guys?
Bomb Ukraine.
Doing that.
What would you
Yeah. What would they do after that?
Seattle do if they sold this truck in the
They would do these.
do better.
Do better.
This guy's got to go. Just keep going like that for a second. Now back your way. Go a little more. Now back. Right there. Close.
Here, it's probably the
Oh, this muffler's right in the way. It's this one on top of it. Tailpipe's right in the way.
Hey, look
Just
at
gotta
that.
flip this up.
We just gotta take these off here and just clip them in there.
Whew. GMC updates. It's been a while. Obviously, this will all be tied together on YouTube, so you won't know that. But it's been like a week or two. Haven't had much time to work on the frame of the GMC truck, but I did get some time to throw down on it pretty hard tonight. So I got the rest of the suspension all done, and I got the wheels and tires on, and it's starting to look like a real truck project. Look at it. You can't beat that. So, starting to look like a truck. Rough Country 5-inch lift kit is installed. I ended up running down to our buddies at Lush Schwab and having them compress the shocks and pull the old coil springs off to put them on the new shocks because I didn't feel like shooting myself in the face with those sketchy things. Wiring harness is already in. That was in the other day. All the exhaust and all that stuff was already on, but I did button up some more of the wiring. Obviously, the front lift kit, pretty involved with what I had to do there. I love the height of it right now without the body on it. We'll see how it turns out. The back turned out real good. That was super easy. It was just new shocks and blocks, so that's super simple. I think the wheels turned out sweet. They're going to look pretty awesome. Tires are looking good. So now, all I have to do is put the gas tank up in here. It's just sitting over there on the ground. So we got to grab the gas tank, put that in. That's for another day. And then I will go back over and pick the cab back up, set the cab back down on the body, and throw the motor chain transfer case in. Obviously, I'm going to throw the motor chain transfer case back in before, but that should take me 20-30 minutes. Probably have the old man walk up again and help me set it in there carefully because now the frame's a little bit higher. So I'm going to need a couple more hands. But I'm exhausted. I don't know what time it is. Late. It's like a Wednesday too. It's horrible. It is 1:35 in the morning, so I'm going in. I'm exhausted. I have so much work to do tomorrow for my real job, so I'm out. But that's the update on the frame. Like I said, I think overall looking pretty good. I like the rough country lift. It's turned out sweet. The frame's looking awesome. Wheels and tires are looking awesome. The fact we didn't have to bleed brakes or anything crazy, it's starting to look like a real truck project. So, like I said, this next weekend, we're going to be out of town this weekend, so hopefully next weekend I can come back during the weekday, throw the motor train transfer case in the frame, roll it to the other side of the shop, shove the cab back on there, start fitting fenders and that sort of thing on for the front end, and just, you know, test body gaps and everything like you always have to do if you take it apart. And then spray the front end, and then, man, hopefully in the next 2 weeks or so I could be driving this truck around. So, yeah, stay tuned though. I got another Chevelle update coming. We did have a Buck Nasty motor built for it. I have a whole nother video of us going to get that motor and bring it back to the shop. It's underneath my bench over there, and so click the link, subscribe, watch more videos. Hopefully Chevelle video will be up soon.